Hello, this is Morgan Freeman, and I want to thank you so much for all the ways that you support my friends on The Edge with Mark Thompson. You know, you can listen on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, iHeartRadio, and many places that great podcasts are heard. That's an oxymoron, by the way. Great podcasts.
You're listening to The Edge with Mark Thompson, edge-show.com.
Hi, it's Mark, and the audio in this podcast, it will not sound like this. It's just a little intro that we're doing at the beginning. Everything else is in the studio. Want to welcome you to the show, tell you we've got a really cool episode for you. We'll start with some politics. We'll check in with Michael Shure, who's on the road, going from place to place as primaries and caucuses continue to get done. He's on his way to South Carolina now, having just left Nevada. Then we get into J. Elvis Weinstein, the original voice of Servo. Josh is so funny, so much fun. And he is our podcast brother, and I will tell the story of the cops descending on my home because there was an intruder believed to be in the home, spotted by the security guard across the street. And indeed, an intruder was on the property. Arrest was made. But the story of calling the cops and how many cops came and everything is a pretty good one. I think you're going to be happy with it. And then superstar dietitian Julieanna Hever joins us. Her new book with Cronise, who is both a scientist and a gourmet chef, is terrific. And so I hope you'll love this episode just the way I do. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all the ways you support us with 5-star reviews, with positive support, with subscriptions. We've had a hell of a time, and we're still having it with our webmaster who's kind of gone MIA. So we're sort of in transition, but we're working hard to continue to record new episodes, and we'll continue to post them. I just wanted to explain why there was a little mini hiccup in our delivery schedule. But so glad you're here, and let's get started.
This is The Edge.
The advantage it means.
They let guy just spit on me for no reason.
That's horrible.
Is there some comfort in uncertainty, do you think?
You're a degenerate.
Because Australian Shepherds need action.
Wow. Yeah.
This is The Edge.
That's a self-loathing term that I use.
Oh, got it.
The kids love him. He's Michael Shure, everybody. Come on. Yes. Great to have Michael back in the mix. Michael, it's been one of those weeks where, Bernie Sanders has broken out. We're coming out of those caucuses in Nevada. Can we spend a minute just... I think the caucus system is a kind of voter suppression, where you've got to go and stand somewhere. And we heard the Iowa caucuses, and this is not quite so bad because they let you vote early in Nevada. But don't you agree it's, again, a throwback to a system that is, I believe, it's a kind of voter suppression?
Yes. I'm just because it makes for a more interesting conversation, I'm going to take the other side of it a little bit, but with the caveat that I mostly agree with you. What the people that participate in the caucuses, you have a really high concentration of very engaged voters who caucus, people that are on top of what it means to be a voter and to follow candidates, to have an interest in what goes on. So you're culling the herd a little bit. Which isn't good when you're looking at voters, and voting. But you are at least engaging some very, very interested people. The other side of that is if everyone were, if it was a primary and you had 87% participation, then you can make a stronger argument. But people don't vote in this country. So why not take the people that vote most? Now I'm going to come over to your side and say the caucus system is arcane. It doesn't work. It is exclusionary. It is intimidating to first-time voters. And I also think it's a dinosaur. I think it's going to go away. But it would be nice if they were able to hang on to some of the strong elements of having the caucus. And to that end, I do think that Iowa should still go first because there is no more interested electorate than the Iowans. But I don't think they should go first alone because there's little more white electorate than Iowa, and that has to be corrected as well.
Right, and I understand they're interested in it. Even in the case of Nevada, I understand that perhaps those are the most engaged voters in the state, or among the most engaged voters in the state. But what I would suggest is, in that sense, they are not really reflective of the electorate.
Well, except I know what you're saying, and that's true. And listen, the white landowners were the most engaged voters in 1812. So, that it's not a defense of that, but it is. There has to be something that rewards that engagement to a degree, or there doesn't have to be. It's nice that there is something that rewards that engagement, and it doesn't reflect the electorate, but that's not really the electorate. Then it doesn't reflect the population, and the electorate is different than the population, and I do think that we should have the most informed people making the decisions if other people are too lazy to come out when the polls are open from 7 in the morning to 8 at night.
I've always wondered, get out and vote. Get out and vote. Hey, don't get out and vote. I don't care whether you get out and vote. I mean, let me do the voting.
Right, but
you don't
complaining.
Vote. Right, exactly. That's right. If you don't vote, then don't complain. All right, now quickly to Bernie Sanders and to the race itself. So Bernie Sanders had a great showing in Nevada, didn't he? And Joe Biden finished second.
Yeah, I think Bernie Sanders had a great showing all through these first states, and he's been running for president now for about 5 years, and it's paying off finally. He really lost badly to Hillary Clinton, but he in 2020 has learned the lessons of 2016 and applied them well. The cautionary tale here is that not very many people have voted yet, and they've voted in places that are easy to run in if you're a candidate with the backing that Bernie Sanders has, and that's Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada. And I think that yes, Nevada.
Well, what does that mean when you say that, Michael? I'm sorry, but what do you mean when you say with the backing that Bernie Sanders has? It's easy to run in those states.
Because Bernie Sanders has raised enormous sums of money, and that money goes far when you are a candidate that can inspire in places like Iowa, because you can run a concentrated race, right? It's not a national race. It's an Iowa race. It's not a national race. It's a New Hampshire race. And to a lesser extent, Nevada, it really, we still are reliant on those first two, historically have been and continue to be until something changes, reliant on those first two races, which are Iowa and New Hampshire. And so what I mean by that is he had a leg up because he was organized from 2016. He had a leg up because his notoriety as a candidate running against people who are not as well known, with the exception of the vice president. But still, I mean, it's still pretty close because Bernie Sanders appeals to so many younger voters who didn't even know Joe Biden that well, but knew Bernie Sanders. And so he did have a built-in advantage, which he exploited beautifully and has so far. The question is, though, as the race becomes more national, can he hang on to that? And that's what any candidate, this is not specific to Bernie Sanders, can any candidate who does well in the early states make that last? Donald Trump did it. Barack Obama did it. But, it remains to be seen whether or not Bernie Sanders can do that. He's also going to have a lot more negative up against him now that he is the front runner. And that's the blessing of being the front runner and the curse of being the front runner.
I want to talk about Sanders as a viable general election candidate in a second, but first I want to talk about the other progressive person who was in the race, and that's Elizabeth Warren. She had such a great debate night. What happened?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I would argue that Tom Steyer is pretty progressive as well.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have neglected that.
Falls under the radar. But I mean, I don't think a lot of people know that. But if you look at his policies, he is as progressive as Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren had a fantastic debate. 100,000 people voted in Nevada. 75,000 of them voted before Elizabeth Warren took to the debate stage. I think that says a lot about why that may not have translated in Nevada, and she's hoping that it translates going forward now. It's going to be hard to do that. She's going to have another debate and a chance to do that again. But I think that it's really important that people remember that, obviously a debate doesn't change everything. Ask Kamala Harris, who in Miami sort of obliterated Joe Biden on the stage, and she then, a few months later had to drop out of the race, or several months later dropped out of the race. I think when you look at the effects of a debate have, they're great, but you have to follow them up with campaigning, and it has to be on favorable ground. The ground that's favorable to Warren becomes less and less unless she's able to surprise in South Carolina or have a strong enough showing that she is clearly in third place coming out of Super Tuesday. If she's able to do that, then all is okay there. But it's a big if.
Assuming nothing really changes much and these other candidates begin to melt away and we end up with a Bernie Sanders candidacy and Bernie Sanders at the head of the Democratic ticket, everybody's talking, and I say everybody, I mean there's a lot of talk from much of the mainstream to say Bernie can't win. I mean, we have a guy on my radio station in San Francisco
who says he has a 0% chance, and he said he's got zilch, zero, no chance of winning. I don't know that anybody knows that, but he does have this socialism brand that is going to be run into the ground by the time the general election rolls around.
I mean, guilty as charged a little bit of saying they can't win because we all said it, or most of us, I shouldn't say we all, but everyone on this line said it, that Donald Trump couldn't win. Many people said Barack Obama couldn't win. I mean, winning the presidency is about proving those who say you can't do it wrong. And he's going to have to prove a lot of people wrong who said he couldn't win the nomination, said he couldn't win the presidency. I think it is far too early to say that Bernie Sanders can't win the presidency or the nomination, but I think there are good reasons to say he can't do either because of, what he brings to the race. And there are a lot of negatives across the board for a number of voters. But that said, maybe not enough. And if he wins the nomination, the challenge will then be holding on to Democratic voters who have a bad taste in their mouth about him from 2016, and there are several of those. And I think that he's also going to have to.
And when you say that, just to follow that point out, you mean a bad taste because they feel he might have hurt Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, right. That he played the spoiler, that he was too rude to Hillary Clinton, that he didn't do enough. I'm not saying that any of this is right. I'm just saying this is the perception that he didn't do enough in the wake of Clinton securing the nomination to help her secure the presidency, that it never felt real. And that might not be the fault of Bernie Sanders, right? I mean, you can only be as genuine as you are.
Yeah, I mean, the guy got on a plane and went out and campaigned for her, but I agree. Yeah, that's still out there, so you're right to point to it.
Yeah, and then there's the socialism, and then there's still Democrats. I know several Democrats in their 70s who say they can't vote for a socialist. There are people that have the memories of the Cold War who are big parts of the Democratic Party. He's going to have to disabuse people of the notion that he's a socialist like they knew in 1967 and 1972 and all those years. I just think that there's a lot that works against Bernie Sanders and in this situation that he is very accustomed to fighting back at. And so I think that if you look at those negatives, this is something that Bernie Sanders has had to work against a lot, and he knows how to do it pretty well. If he knows how to do it to the extent that it will get him the presidency, I don't know. But he's still got to work on the nomination because there are a lot of people in his party that are still not comfortable with the idea, even though they're getting more comfortable with the idea of him as nominee.
How does that work from a party standpoint, a Democratic Party standpoint? Like, they're not comfortable with him, but he has all of these delegates. Let's say he doesn't reach the delegate threshold. Review for us what would happen in the convention and how many you need and how it works.
Well, the idea is that you have to have a certain number of delegates to secure the nomination. Without that number of delegates, then it goes to the convention, right? We haven't really seen a brokered convention, really. I mean, in the way they were, these things are preordained generally, right? In old times, they were decided on the convention floor. As recently as 1980 at the Republican convention, Gerald Ford and Ronald Reagan had to make sort of a deal, and Reagan went, did not break up the convention, sort of in a way grudgingly didn't do it, and there was bad blood between the two. But we haven't really seen a brokered convention where that if you do not have enough delegates, then these, Amy Klobuchar has 7 delegates right now. She does not have to release them until the convention if she's not the nominee, and she doesn't even have to release them then. But what she could do is pledge those delegates to whoever she favors there, and they would be bound to go with the candidate that she put them to. If it doesn't on the first ballot get to a majority, then the brokering begins. There are also within the Democratic primary system, there are super delegates, people who are not part of the delegate election process, that are not just Democratic Party elders, but they're elected officials, governors, senators, and people like that who would vote. And that is something that has caused great consternation from the Sanders people and a lot of the progressives within the Democratic Party because they feel like the party maintains control. And
that is the idea behind the super delegates, really, right?
It is. I mean, those are the rules, right? The rules that the party has set forward, and they're rules that Sanders wanted changed. And this is where it matters that he's not a Democrat more, because he could have, let's say he became a Democrat, right, rather than an independent, he could have been part of forcing that issue a little bit more, but people wouldn't listen to him because he was from outside the party. Will that change? I don't know. They have refined the superdelegate process. They've lowered the number, but it's still, in this case, in this year, if we look at it this far out, when they gather in Milwaukee, it's going to be a little bit different than it was last time, but they will still have an effect. And whether they will need to, we don't know either. Bernie Sanders, if he keeps up this pace, is going to get the nomination without needing superdelegates, without needing a brokered convention. I don't know that he'll be able to do that, but it's certainly a possibility.
Before we leave you, what a story about that Zamboni driver who was called into that hockey game because they needed an emergency goalie because their other two goalies were out. Can you?
It's awesome. It's one of the great things in hockey is the emergency.
You're such a
goalie.
hockey fan. Yeah, you're such a hockey fan.
Whenever
I thought
you
of you
go to an
instantly.
NHL game, there's someone in the seats who's being paid $500 to sit there, and if either team, it's not just the home team. If you're in Toronto, as this goalie was, if either team needs a goalie because the two other goalies get hurt, you have to dress and go in and play for either team, and that's what he did. And this guy, David Ayers, went in and played for the Carolina Hurricanes. He got the win. They're selling his jersey now. He's a Zamboni driver for the Toronto Marlies, which is the AHL hockey team up there, the minor league hockey team up there. It's just a great story. I mean, it's a beer league hockey guy like I am going in and getting to play.
Oh,
amazing.
I just love it. I really do love it. Everything about it is great. And you just thought he was going to get slaughtered. You know, you thought he's standing there in the goaltending spot, and you just felt like they're just going to be parking the puck anywhere they want around this guy. And the first couple of shots did indeed go in for goals. And then after that, he made 8 saves.
He led in 2 quickies, and he made saves. I mean, it's incredible, really, when you think about it, because there's nothing else in all of pro sports that mirrors this, right? Can you imagine them putting in a quarterback from the crowd, having a pitcher come in and throw balls from the crowd? It's unheard of, but it's also sort of one of the great things about hockey. It's like, this guy plays beer league. All right, let's bring him in. He can play. We need a guy, right? It's pickup hockey. It's pond hockey. You go through the neighborhood when the ponds freeze over and look for people to play, so you have a game. It's really cool.
Too good. All right, Michael Shure, thank you as always. You're on to South Carolina, right?
Yeah, on to South Carolina this week and covering that, and then I'll be in Texas for Super Tuesday because why stay in a state that votes on Super Tuesday when you could travel to a different one? So.
All right, Michael Shure, everybody. Yeah.
Thank you all. You guys are all so kind.
Thanks, Michael.
Hi, how are you? I want to thank you for supporting Mark Thompson here on the Edge Radio. Fantastic show with all the jokes and J. Elvis, and all the commentary and the politics and the bullshit. You can listen to this little pageant on iTunes or Stitcher, or you can just go to the damn website, edge-show.com. Stupid. Why is that dash? edge-show.com.
I want to first welcome everybody to our big show. We're the little engine that could, Josh. I don't have a big budget.
But are we the little engine that should, Mark?
Well, that's a good question. I ask myself that question every day, and you're right to ask it as well.
Thank you.
But I enjoy our time together.
Likewise.
Hey, for all I know, increasingly it's just an excuse to spend time together.
Hey, if that's all it is, there could be worse things.
Thank you.
Like a vegan lunch.
Oh.
Am I right?
Am I right, people? How about that Oscar thing with the Joaquin Phoenix?
He went all in. That was nice.
It was nice. And, somebody, although you libs, the Hollywood libs, lecturing us on a voice for the voiceless.
All right.
To which I say, why is it that we are okay with celebrities hawking Nike, Gatorade, Nespresso? Ellen's on every other commercial.
Right.
And yet, when a celebrity speaks from their heart and uses their platform to speak up for an issue that they feel is important,
right,
we do the eye roll on it.
Well, I think that's all baked in now to the celebrity decision to do such a thing. And I think that makes it more brave, honestly, because that there's a certain percentage of backlash you're just going to face in this world for pretty much anything you say.
Yeah.
If you go out on a limb like this, you pretty much know where it's going to come from, which is going to be a pretty hateful, intolerant place.
Yeah.
So it's a brave thing to do, I think, do I think it's the right forum? Sure or no?
No.
It's everyone's choice. And
in other words, you've got no issue with it, is what you're saying.
I don't have any issue with it. I feel like if people want to take that platform and they're willing to take the backlash that they know is baked in with it, I still think that they did something good for the world.
I also think that one has to remember the alternative is, would you prefer they get up there and thank their agent at CAA, thank their manager who's believed into them for 25 years?
No, I
thank
always
the
prefer
director.
they do something funny. That's what.
Well,
that's
funny,
always what I
funny,
want.
funny, or authentic.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So I mean,
And I believe that was authentic to him.
oh my God, yes, I mean, that was completely authentic. I do not. That dude is
Whereas-
not choreographed.
Whereas authentic to Renee Zellweger isn't as interesting.
Well, she is still speaking, and now it's been a couple of weeks.
Yes. And will not strike up.
By the way, that was a good thing. Everybody, by the time you hear this, the Oscars is probably a couple of weeks ago. But I always, next year, hope that we can organize and watch it together. Where did you watch it?
I just watched it at home.
Okay. And I kind of...
So I'm easily organized.
No, well, I just think that someone else said this to me. Thank you for reminding me of this inadvertently. Somebody said to me, that I was just watching with a few people, none of whom had seen any movies. It was the weirdest thing. It was none of them had seen any movies, and I couldn't hear the audio of the broadcast. Like, I'm
Really?
like, can you turn it up? I was the only one, clearly, who was really interested.
Right.
By the way, they were cool people. I enjoyed talking to them. It wasn't like I had a bad time, but it was just the oddest Oscar viewing party
You were the
since
guy.
Nobody's viewing and no one's seen any movies.
You were the guy at the Super Bowl party into the game.
Right.
Right.
But one of the people at the party said to me, do you know the show Mystery Science Theater? I said, of course I do.
I have servo on speed dial.
Yeah. And he said they need to do a Mystery Science Theater for the Oscars, and they should just stream it online. And he said, I would watch it.
Yeah.
Has that ever been pitched?
There was a thing years ago where they tried, where I don't know, it fell apart, I think, because of the austerity of the Oscars.
Right.
I don't remember exactly what it was, but they did do like an Oscar special years ago. This was after I left the show. But
I mean, the thing that you're going to run up against in the specific case of the Oscars is they protect that brand in ways that are
the truth is the whole world is Mystery Science Theatering these things.
That's true.
Go on Twitter. The entire world is taking
right.
every shot they can think of as fast as they can.
Yeah, we're all playing it now.
Yeah.
We're all doing it. You're right. That's a great, great point. But Renee Zellweger did kind of really pad her part a little bit.
Oh man, my eyes rolled back in my head. I could not tell you what she talked about.
Well, that's just what I was about to say. The problem is that I couldn't understand what she was talking about.
Yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix, I did understand what he was talking about. Now, somebody on Twitter, I have trolls on Twitter also. Oh, yeah, of course you support him because that's what you support. He supported the things you support. Well,
doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I'm sure that's one reason that I'm tuned in. Yeah. But I also
had
felt
he espoused white supremacy, you might not be so for it.
I support his ability and anybody's ability to use the platform, including John Voight. If John Voight got up there, who's this right-wing bizarro political guy, and said, hey, the man takes a lot of grief, but he's trying to make America great again.
Yeah,
I mean, I would have gone, okay, well, he took his shot. I mean, what's wrong with that?
Right.
I mean, I felt the power of Joaquin Phoenix. I felt the heartbreak that went behind it, I guess. I felt it was legitimate. And the reason I know it's legitimate also, I've never met Joaquin Phoenix, but I know a lot of people who know him and know what he does on animal rights issues and probably a lot of other issues involving civil rights in life. But he after the Golden Globes, he went to a pig vigil. Do you know what that is?
No.
It's where a bunch of activists go to where the pigs are actually going to be, the gates open and the trucks go in to take them into slaughter. Okay, so right outside, the trucks stop. And these pigs are taken for, sometimes days without water, without food, of course. There's no concern for them. They're just things. They're products, right? And a lot of them die on the way. And they're all, dying of thirst, literally. And people go up with water bottles and actually provide. And more than anything,
and people get arrested sometimes.
People get arrested. Now it's kind of hit a kind of stasis where both activists, and again, they're not protesting, they're just offering some relief to these animals right before they go to slaughter. It's a really touching thing in a way. And the truckers who take it, they understand it. And so there's this, and law enforcement, so there's a stasis, there's a equilibrium that everything's hit.
Everyone to their symbol.
Right.
Sort of.
And so they kind of know that no one's here to really, we understand you have to do what you're doing, and we're compelled to try to help these animals in their last hours. And it's called witnessing. It's a really intense experience, as you might imagine.
Yeah.
And Joaquin Phoenix, after the Golden Globes, went to that instead of the parties. I mean, that's a dude who, walks the walk.
Yeah.
So,
frankly, given the choice.
Josh. So what did I want to tell you about? I don't want to make this all about the Oscars and Hollywood celebrities.
No, do I.
I'd like to make this about something that people might care about, which is me.
Your house.
Yeah.
I want it back.
I had the wildest thing happen. I'm still in this awful situation where I'm not in my home. Just hate it. Please, everybody, this is not the pity me part of the show. I'm not. I understand. I've come from one great house, and I'm still in a great. I'm grateful to have a house. I'm grateful to have my health. I'm great. All that stuff.
I wasn't going to hit you with any of that. So
Okay,
you're just
good.
Like
I always feel, by the way, when someone has to say, "Well, at least you've got your health," that there must be some bad shit going down, right?
well, it's a horrible thing to say to somebody. At least you've got your health. It means I've just discounted everything you just complained about.
I never thought of it that way. That's absolutely true.
I'm not hearing you, is what that is. Whereas I feel your pain, sort of. I can certainly sympathize. I've never been kicked out of my house for a natural disaster, so.
Josh is making such an important point, though. We should all take something from this, and here's what we should take. You have to go, wow, that just sounds awful. You can't say, well, at least you got your health. At least you have a house.
Right.
I mean, that's not what you should say. You should say, wow, that sounds awful.
The answer to that is go fuck yourself. I'm telling my story to a better friend.
So I'm in this temporary house because my house, as you know, the neighborhood burned.
Right.
And my house is damaged, needs a new roof, needs this and that. So my house is across the street from another house, and that house is occupied by one of the most famous artists in Los Angeles.
Really?
Yeah, a super famous guy named John Baldessari.
Okay.
He's a conceptual artist, and he's huge, okay, in the art world. And he just died in the house right across the street. But here's why that's important. Because this house is 5,000 square feet that he was living in, and there's only one bedroom, which is where he was with a nurse type thing, and one bathroom, and the rest of the house is art.
Wow.
It's all his art and other art that he had collected. So as you might imagine, it's worth hundreds of millions of dollars in there.
Right. And it didn't burn down, which is pretty amazing.
Well, no, I'm sorry. This is in the Loner neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
I'm in Venice,
sorry.
California
Okay,
now. So this is so there was never any threat of fire.
Okay.
But because of the art's value, there is a security guard stationed there 24 hours a day
Okay.
as they work out what they're going to do with it or whatever. As I say, he just died a few weeks ago. So I'm coming home to that house in Southern California in Venice. And as I'm pulling up, the security guy is doing something, looking at his camera. And then there's another guy next to him who's, as it turns out, my neighbor, who, by the way, I just met for the first time that afternoon. He did all the visual effects, or a bunch of them, for Titanic. So he's a kind of cool guy, too, I wouldn't mind talking to.
The insurance company's putting up a name drop alley.
He's a British guy. Yeah, I just got my citizenship last month. I said, well, isn't that great? You got here just in time for the unraveling of everything. So what had happened was the security guy had videoed a guy checking out, casing my place, and then going into the place through the front gate, which is locked, has a lock, but the lock is not working, like a bunch of other stuff on the house, by the way.
Yeah.
And so the guy was back there, we thought. And the British guy, who's just a badass, said, I want to go see if he's still there. And so he went back.
And you were like, cheers,
great,
mate.
good, yeah, good luck. And he was back there. He was right against the back door. He said, I saw him. He saw me. He says, against your back door. So he's on the property. There's an area where like a little back patio, and he's against the back door. So I call 911, and now it's getting late, kind of dusk. Still no cops come after like a half hour. After about 45 minutes, 2 cops show up in one squad car, and 2 cops get out. And they
is there only one way out? Back out?
No, there is a back way. You'd have to climb a fence, I think, to get out. But he could if he wanted to. So we're watching the place, and no one's come out. So the cops get out of the car, and they look about 11 years old. Now, that's one of the reasons. As you get older, everybody looks younger.
Right.
But that said, if you look, it's on my Instagram. You look at that; he's young looking.
You got a problem, mister?
Plus, they're really good looking.
You got intruders?
I even said to him, I said, are you real cops? Are you are you TV cops? Are you on your way to an audition, maybe?
Why, are you a director?
That's right. No, but I've got a script.
All right.
So they're the first wave, Josh, of the law enforcement that's about to be brought to bear on this situation.
Oh, yeah?
Because he said, well, I'm going to treat this as a 459 in progress. You know what that is?
It's a home intrusion. A burglary.
It's burglary, right? I did not know that. Robbery.
Yeah.
Because I said, I don't know what 459 is.
I didn't know it either, but I contextualized.
Yeah, very nicely done.
Thank you.
I just told him right up front, and rather than guess, I said, I don't really know what a 459 is. He says, it's robbery.
Yeah.
Robbery. Attempted robbery. I said, oh, okay, cool. So 459, okay.
10-4.
Yeah.
Copy that.
Then he said, I said, well, are you going in? He said, no. He said, I've put a call out. We've got a bunch of units here rolling code 3. Do you know what code 3 is?
Yeah.
I said,
Possible
I'm sorry.
armed suspect.
I said, you got me again. I don't know what code 3 is. He says, code 3 is lights and sirens.
Okay.
I said, all right, that's cool. So
I got some uglier guys coming to take care of the real gristle.
that's what I wanted, though. I wanted some guys who looked like they just came from a stakeout. You know, yeah, we're here. What do you got here, Sarge? Yeah. So within 10 minutes, the world shows up.
Okay.
I mean, 11 different or 12 different cop cars, guns. They're pulling these guns out of places I don't even. They're guns and bigger guns and bigger guns.
Okay.
They got vests on, the whole thing. And then he said, I'm rolling an airship to the location.
Wow, nice.
And I said, is that a helicopter?
No, it's a blimp. Bringing a blimp.
Well, why
in.
does he call it an airship?
Because it's better than a helicopter.
That's what I said. I said, I understand that airship does sound better, so I'm glad you guys call it that. But
like
it
a
is
Black Hawk is an airship.
It's a helicopter, right? Anyway, so now it's dark, and the helicopter shows up, and there's a big beam down on the house, and there's all that stuff. And then these guys are all collected. They're all going, get back, get back, get back. And, you know, they got all these guns, and, like, they don't even recognize you as the owner of the house anymore. You're just like another person watching.
This is an active scene, sir.
Yeah, thank you. There must be a code
Please go step back and talk to your glossary officer.
That's right. I know this is a 459, Sarge. I know that. Then they did this, and I've only seen it on television. They did this. They did, this is the Los Angeles Police Department. We have the home surrounded. Come out with your hands up. Those are the exact words they used.
Nice.
And I thought, wow, it is on, man. I mean, all of a sudden, the thrill, like, this is as close as I'm going to get to being a cop.
Right.
You
And
know?
by the way, you have a great voice for that announcement. That felt like a 1950s radio serial. That was fantastic.
Officer, would you like me to do the next one?
I could record one for you. I'll give you some options.
Yeah, let me do it like Idol. This is the Los Angeles Police Department. Come out with your hands up. Too light. This is the Los Angeles Police Department. Come out with your hands up.
Now do Gregory Peck. This is the Los Angeles Police Department. Come out with your hands up.
So they actually made the announcement twice, and then they go in. They went into the house with their guns and everything. And I yell, there are cats in there. If you hear a sound, don't shoot anybody. Because I was worried if they heard a rustling or something that they would take a shot.
All right, at a cat.
I mean, you know, it's possible.
Yeah, like your cats would come right out if people were running into the house.
No, they would not. But one of them said, are the cats friendly?
Who cares?
I said, one is friendly. But you know, it's weird that the cat thing, but I just thought, wow, this is how this stuff goes sideways. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
Something
you got to
bad
protect
happens.
the cats.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, don't let them out while you're
don't let them out. And
So was the house empty then?
The house was empty. We had seen, and one of the reasons they were, I think, quite worried, I shouldn't say they were quite worried. I don't know that they were worried. It's tough to think that they were very worried. There were 30 of them, and they had guns that I've never seen before that they were going in.
Yeah.
But to the extent that there was anxiety about what was going on in the situation, it was because we'd seen a light inside on the third floor of the house, and we hadn't seen that. Both of us, the neighbor and myself, saw it at the same time. So we thought maybe he was in the house. But it turned out it was a light from behind the house that one of the law enforcement guys was using, like he was doing a flashlight thing on it.
Oh, okay.
So then the cop said, you're going to have to come to court and testify. And I thought, oh, my God. He said, I know, man, I'm sorry. But I said, look, I saw Cape Fear, both movies, the first one and the remake. Nothing good happens after you.
Testify to what?
Because he didn't actually break into the house. So you get him for trespassing and, you know, something else. You have to testify. But then.
But who's the he? Did they catch a person?
Oh, yeah, they arrested a guy. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I guess I should tell that story wrong. I got so into the announcement about, you know, come out with your hands up.
No, when last we left the story, there was no one inside.
Oh, man. I don't know how to tell a story. I really don't. Anyway, so...
There was some ear candy, but, a little more meat.
Okay, so... so they bring this guy out. I've actually got a picture of him.
So there is a guy in the house?
There was a guy.
He was behind the house.
Behind the house, against the back door.
Okay, so he had never moved from that position.
Right. They showed me where he was kind of hiding in a little spot next to the back door.
And this is like an hour he was there back there?
Yeah, probably over an hour, maybe 90 minutes. Okay. And they take the guy into the squad car. They come upstairs. I have to sign some stuff because we're going to testify, blah, blah, blah. And then they go back out, and then they ring the doorbell again. And they say, hey, we did a drug eval on him. And I said, I know what an eval is. Evaluation, am I right? And he said... No, actually. The guy had drugs in his system, so now we can bust him for other stuff so you don't have to testify.
Well, that was nice of him to tell you that.
Yeah, and he said it's really good news for you because it's no fun to go down there.
Right.
So
that's great. I mean, that was a good piece of service right there because you didn't have to tell you that.
Right. You
could have just sat there worrying, waiting for that shoe to drop.
He also said this, if I can just be a little self-indulgent here.
Okay.
I mean, a little more self-indulgent, that's what I meant to say. He said, hey, I didn't want to say anything when we all first pulled up, but I used to watch you every night on television. You're really great. I really enjoy you. I said, oh, thank you so much. And what are you doing now? Blah, blah, blah. I said, well, I have a podcast called The Edge with Mark Thompson.
And you're going to be on it next week.
And then... all these cops and all of this stuff and all this drama, and then it just all rolls out, and the street is quiet again.
That was very Raymond Chandler ending there.
Oh, yeah. And just as fast as the tide of law enforcement rolled in, the tide rolled out.
The city waits for its next wave. Well, that's very dramatic. And, and it was good for you because you had that nice backup. It wasn't just like one guy. I think I saw a guy. It was like you had actual concrete, two other dudes. One had a piece of film. The other one actually had eyes on.
Right. That's exactly right.
So you were just like sitting pretty in terms of your own self-esteem.
Oh, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought of that, but I think you're right. Like it must have subconsciously made me feel better.
Yeah, because once you got the SWAT team out there, you're going, I hope they find someone. This is going to be mercy.
Well, I must have asked... I think I asked twice in different ways. Hey, look, I said, I hope I did the right thing calling you guys. Maybe I should have just gone there and, dealt with it. It sounds like he was a guy who wasn't on. He said, no. He said, you have no idea what he has. He is on something, so there's no reasoning with him.
Right.
This is exactly when you call the police. Exactly. He said, no, you did. You shouldn't feel 1 second of doubt. Good. On that. So I felt, but I had the same thought you did, which is, I hope I'm not just, you know what I mean? Like, guess what? I think I heard something. I didn't want to be one of those people.
Yeah, no, I mean, you had strong evidence to be concerned.
So that's my little brush with drama.
That's pretty good drama.
Mm-hmm.
Any progress on the house?
No, we got the bids in, and it's for substantial amount of money, and I'm worried the insurance company is going to go, I don't want to pay, we're not going to pay that. Well, okay.
I hope they've trained their guys not to use that voice.
I hope they sound that's what they all are going to sound, regardless of what voice they use.
What are you wearing? Khakis.
So I think they have to push paper back and forth to, deny your claim or try to knock your claim down. This is what I'm guessing. Maybe they'll just say, great, do it.
They might pay it.
Yeah.
They might.
I hope they do because I want to get the show going.
Because if they don't, they're still paying for your replacement home.
That's right. And that sucks. The replacement home is... Like when you first move out of your house and you're living in a different neighborhood, there's a cool thing to that. Like, all right, this does suck. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's absolutely a net
It's like a staycation, though.
Right. You're in a different place and look at this and it's a new neighborhood. And all
but I'm still going to the same work.
that wears off so quickly.
Yeah.
And then all the other stuff of daily life, like the pots and pans are all scraped up. So like that anti-stick finish is all like, it just looks like everything's just like a big cancer bucket waiting to happen there as you look at it. And I just hate it, man. I just absolutely hate it. And unfortunately, you should tell yourself, well, this is good. It's all going to be good. I don't have those.
Well, once you've hit cancer bucket, you are no longer romanticizing. Let's just say that.
I hate it. I really, and I think almost every day I go, God, I hate this. But it's just the way it has to be for a while. Just the way it has to be for a while, everybody.
Well, I'm sorry, Mark.
No, thank you. At least I have my health.
I wouldn't have said it in a million years.
You thought it.
I thought it hard.
Andy Kindler was on the Super Bowl, your partner.
Indeed. Yes. It was a little surprise for him.
Oh, he was in a commercial, wasn't he?
He was. He was the spokesman essentially for the XFL launch.
No. So tell me, Josh, did you watch any of the XFL, or did Andy?
I know Andy didn't. I saw a few minutes of it. It's like, it's like football happening on the TV in a movie.
Is it?
Kind of,
In
like,
what way?
Well, they're like teams you don't care about.
Oh, I see.
It's like, it's like
Someone told me that the betting lines are posted on the screen.
they have all sorts of info innovations, I guess, but I didn't really stick around long enough to see them all unfold.
So Andy's not going to be the new spokesperson of the XFL?
I don't think so. And I think it was actually supposed to be, he said it was supposed to be Chris Parnell. And then Chris Parnell couldn't do it, so they got Andy.
Wow.
So,
how did that list go?
hopefully, Chris Parnell, Andy Kindler.
Yeah, I would hope.
But we all know the truth. No, he was actually great in the spot, I thought.
I don't even remember what the spot was, but I remember that he was good in it.
He was like a doctor talking about football withdrawal,
Oh, I see, yeah. And Josh has a podcast with Andy Kindler. It's called Thought Spiral.
It's true.
And it's
a delight.
Wildly popular.
I'm sure we have some common listeners.
Yes, and we wish you good luck with that, but not better luck than we're having with this one. That's Dog Eat Dog out there. Isn't it amazing how many podcasts there are?
Yes.
I mean, my pal, who is a friend of the show, actually, he's been on the show before. He's going to start a podcast because the network's asking him to start a podcast.
All right.
And he's got 20 people working on each episode.
All right.
I mean, that's unbelievable.
Well, they said then it's just radio. It's just radio not getting broadcast at that point.
Right.
When it's but it also is going to have promotional support to,
Yeah, maybe that's it. When he
make
says
it justify those numbers, to make it justify that staff,
who would have thought that podcasts sort of do they have a bragging right now or not? In other words, it used to be like jury duty, asking someone to be on your podcast. Is it still like that, or do podcasts now have a cachet?
It depends on the podcast.
Right. I get great guests on this show,
Yeah. Well, I think
I tell them it's Joe Rogan's show.
Well, and the fact that we do it at a radio station,
that helps.
Certainly helps it feel legit.
Yeah.
It's all about what, like I've got, when I'm on big podcasts, there's a noticeable difference.
Yeah.
And when I went on the Gilbert Gottfried podcast, it doubled our downloads that week for Thought Spiral.
Wow.
I mean, we didn't hold on to all that, but we held on to some of it.
Sure. That's really cool. I guess we need to get on the Gilbert Gottfried podcast.
Well, I mean, I was on Marin too, but Gilbert Gottfried, because it was that show was a lot like ours.
Right.
There was a more natural crossover than like the WTF.
So one of the things that's happened is with all the podcasts, they begin to sort of run together and.
Yeah, I mean, I think our listeners on Thought Spiral, it's it's kind of the ones that are there every week. It's sort of built into their life,
right?
Right. But I imagine that's a fragile habit to break.
I saw Hamilton. Have you seen it?
I have. Yes.
What'd you think? Change the ending.
I didn't. I didn't love it. I actually liked. I had a more important experience with the soundtrack the first time than by the time I saw it on a touring company. So. It was good. I was sort of distracted by the messianic glow of the other people around me attending it.
Oh, what?
It was just people were acting like it was this incredibly rarefied.
Right.
They were making a pilgrimage to see Hamilton.
It does have that around it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about another show that had a lot of that same sold out, you can't get a ticket for months kind of feel. And I mean, in recent memory, and Book of Mormon was that show.
Yeah, I paid a lot of money to see.
Me too.
The original cast, and I didn't regret it. Did not regret it.
Me either. I saw. Yeah, exactly. I saw the original cast. But you just made a great point, because despite that, like that, we overpaid for the tickets and we came all that distance, and the sense of importance about the show.
Right.
But, like the historical importance or whatever. It says an important thing about life in this country type thing. It didn't have any of that. Right.
Right.
And so you could just say, God, that may be the best musical I've ever seen, or, among them.
Right.
Whereas this has a lot of other stuff. So when you talk about messianic glow, that's a great way to put it. I think you're right. It sort of is viewed by those in the audience as with an importance,
Right.
Like,
it's like it's the same vibe as if people were going to see the Dalai Lama speak at the Shrine Auditorium or something.
Right. No, exactly. But I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a little long. It was a little,
Book of Mormon, to me, still,
Book of Mormon just made me, jealous almost.
Yeah, it was just so good and clever and funny and
well, what I loved
smart.
about it, smart, and I loved that you couldn't come at it for not being a real musical. Like they followed all the rules of Broadway musicals to get their jokes in, and I that's what I kind of respected. Is it wasn't like just this sloppy.
Oh no! They were really great musical numbers there.
Yeah, it was great
Absolutely
songs. Bobby Lopez is great, and but yeah, that's what I respected. And I respected as much as I was never like a huge South Park fan or a huge, I liked a lot of what they did along the way. But it felt like such a product of all of their work.
Yeah, I agree with that. I see what you're saying.
Like they couldn't have gotten to it without having done all the other stuff. It was such a refined version of what they do.
You saw The Producers?
I never did see the musical.
That is a very good musical, too. Yeah. And that also, tremendous music. Well, I mean, I think Thomas Noonan did the music, or...
you have to start with the caveat that I don't like musicals for the most part.
Oh, I see. Okay, so yeah. But it was really terrific. If you don't like musicals, then probably.
Yeah, there's a few that have penetrated that I like, but for the my default position is I'm not a fan.
Just terrific. Well, you know who's not a fan of musicals and has been on this show, and we just lost her, is Allie Willis, and she wrote the music for the Color Purple musical. Right. I remember calling her, I'm going this week to such and such a musical downtown. She said, Mark, I hate musicals. I'm the wrong person. You won the Tony Award for one.
Well, that's what makes her good, is knowing what she hates about it and avoiding it.
Rest in peace, Allie Willis. Such a sad thing.
She was such a delight.
Just the best. Josh, this was a quick visit with you.
That's the best kind, many people tell me.
I adore you and could spend hours and hours quarantined on a cruise ship while we waited to get in because of the coronavirus to some exotic port of call. That's how much I adore you.
Dare to dream, Mark.
Let's get the rest of this episode started.
Now here's something you'll really like.
Subscribe to The Edge on iTunes or on Stitcher.
Or you can go to their website, edge-show.com. Well, still haven't purchased a new domain name, I see.
You're listening to The Edge with Mark Thompson.
Such a pleasure to welcome into the studio America's favorite dietitian, Julieanna Hever. Congratulations on your new book, The Healthspan Solution, How and What to Eat to Add Life to Your Years. And you've written it with Ray Cronise. I want to talk about him in a second, but first, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Mark.
I enjoyed the vegetarian diet, which I think was your last book or 2 books ago, actually.
2 books ago, yes.
Yeah. This is your 5th book.
Yes, that's amazing.
But the vegetarian diet just talked about those Mediterranean foods that can be incorporated into our diet here and ways in which they actually produce longer lifespan, better quality of life. This is sort of in that same vein, in that it's not necessarily just adding years to your life, although maybe it will, but it's sort of the quality of your life as a result of certain dietary changes that you might make.
Yes, healthspan is basically not just living longer, right? Like you want to have quality of life. You want to be able to keep up with your children and grandchildren and be able to have all that vitality and health as long as you possibly can, and then just go to sleep one day when you're old and done.
You just want to die in your sleep? You have a chapter called Dying in Your Sleep?
No.
Okay, good. The Healthspan Solution is this beautiful hardcover, colorful book. I mean, I say it's beautiful, meaning there are all these beautiful pictures of foods, and this is a cookbook with science behind it, is what it looks like to me, right?
Yeah, we broke a lot of rules with this book. It's technically supposed to be a cookbook, but instead of putting, pantry staple lists and meal plans in the front, we wanted to infuse it with as much concentrated science as we could. So everything about the how and the why of Healthspan and how we got to all of the recommendations that we make in the front matter still. Everything's in the front, and why we have those recipes the way we do.
Yeah, you've got a lot of solid science in front. Like if you really just want to get into the X's and O's, there's a lot of that at the beginning. And that gives you the launching pad for all of these different recipes that you see, and as I say, sort of are colorfully brought to life with the pictures. I really have gotten into it. And then this guy, Ray Cronise. Now, he has a scientific background also.
Yes, he is a scientist. He is a former NASA scientist. He did a lot of this physical chemistry experiments and did a lot of stuff with space, and he did a lot of work in space and bringing space to commercial flights like it is becoming now. It's just pretty amazing what he has as a background. But then he ended up, after working for NASA and starting a company, he ended up overweight and with diabetes. And so he did what normal, all the diet advice is out there. He followed, I think it was the, forget the name of the diet, the very popular diet, that he lost the weight and he still had his diabetes. So then when he was speaking about mild cold stress at a TED Med conference, he talked to Dean Ornish, and Dr. Dean Ornish, he was the first person to actually, well, I don't know if he was the first, maybe the second, that documented a complete reversal of advanced stage cardiovascular disease.
A complete reversal based just on a dietary change.
Lifestyle. Yeah, he did diet and lifestyle. He also does stress reduction and stuff like that. But it was the diet itself, obviously, that actually reversed these people that were really, really, really sick. So it's quite extraordinary, and it's been replicated since many times. But interestingly, he asked Ray, well, why are you still, because Ray was like, I don't know why I'm still having diabetes. I lost the weight. I did all this. And Dr. Ornish said, well, what animal products do you have left in your diet? And he had a few things left, just some yogurt and some egg whites and some fish. And he's like, well, why don't you just try cutting it out? And he cut it out. And sure enough, within a few days, weeks, his diabetes was gone.
That's wild. Just with those last few things, it was enough to continue the diabetes in his system?
He could give himself diabetes now with 3 servings of fish. That's how fast it comes back.
Wow.
Yeah,
so you have to have, in his case, maybe a biological predisposition to diabetes? Or?
No, it's the food. That's actually what shows that it's just the food. So even if we all have some kind of preclusion for something, right? We're all going to get sick. It's the diet that feeds us. It's the epigenetics. What we put in our body decides whether those genes are turned on or suppressed. So he showed that with himself. Like, he did a continuous glucose monitor. He's so scientific and curious at heart that's what led him to really dive into metabolism and diet, and that's what led him to this research here.
I feel like my mom gave me every, it wasn't her intent, but like every version of everything bad, We didn't have real butter in the house, ever. I lived 21 years in that house. We only ate margarine. And
Right.
then, processed food. It was just that kind of thing. You're saying that somehow I can shake all of that, or is my body just a time bomb waiting to break out into something awful?
No, I mean, you've been on medication and off medication because of diet, and you've seen it yourself.
Yeah, the reason you know that is because I mentioned on the radio, we did a radio interview, and I said I've been on Lipitor.
Right.
And I'll just mention this because maybe you, the listener, had this experience. So I love cheese. Like, I just had a real problem. I had a house account at a big cheese store, and I would buy cheese for company when they were coming over. But I would buy, 4 pounds of cheese, and the company wasn't coming until Saturday, and it was Tuesday, and then they were out of cheese by Wednesday. So, I really did have a problem with cheese. And I also ate meat and all this other stuff. So I was on Lipitor, which did control my cholesterol. I don't mean to make this about me at all, except to say I think this is a common experience. That's why I mention it. And just in the context of being on medication and off medication, so I was on this Lipitor. Then when I changed my diet, and people who have listened to the show before know I went completely plant-based, like no animal products at all. So no cheese, no meat, no chicken, no fish, nothing that had a mother, do I eat or have any product from an animal. And the cholesterol just dropped massively.
Mark, it's incredible. I always say, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I said to the doctor, can I get off the Lipitor? And finally, he let me get off it.
Yeah. Yeah, we like to say that results are typical because this is what happens. I've now worked with, personally, one-on-one with clients, hundreds, if not thousands of clients. And this is what happens when you choose to eat this way and you get rid of all those other foods that you just mentioned. People get off of their statins. They get off of their blood sugar medicines. They get off of their blood pressure medicines. In fact, so quickly that we have to warn the doctors ahead of time and say, look, we need to be monitored real carefully because you don't want to end up hypotensive or hypoglycemic, and you could have some repercussions of that too. So our clients get off their medications consistently. It's so replicable that it's mind-blowing that we're not taught this in med school and nutrition school.
Well, that's the other thing. It's sort of scandalous. We talked to Michael Greger here once on the show, who's a doctor, does a lot of reviews of studies and a lot of detailed reviews of things that appear in medical journals, that kind of thing. And he says, they do almost no diet training in medical school and through there. I mean, you think about the fact that there's so much they have to learn, but clearly one of the things that has an effect on the body and a lasting effect is what you put in the body.
Diet is now the #1 cause of death and disability in the United States. Over smoking. That's how significant your food is. You are quite literally what you eat. Every bite matters. And no, they're not. I sat in on medical school nutrition classes. I teach physicians and dietitians all around the world about eating this way because the results are so amazing. What's interesting is that a lot of these healthcare practitioners are coming to this way of eating because of their patients. So we'll have a client come to us, we put them through our program, they get healthy, and their doctors go, oh my gosh, what did you do? And then they get inspired to learn more about it, if it's good. We've also had a lot of times the opposite, where the physician's like, oh, you're having an eating disorder, or you're at risk for sodium deficiency. And, I mean, a perfectly healthy person that just resolved all of these chronic conditions and, they got off these medications. You would think that this would be celebrated by everyone, but it is slowly happening more and more, I've seen over the last 15 years.
There's definitely a cultural bias toward animal products, which is what you're up against, I would imagine. I don't mean you personally, but what we're up against when we change our diets. But there's a lot of great science here at the beginning of the book. I was struck by a couple of things. You talk about macro confusion. Can you go through what that is, please?
Yes. We believe that the use of protein, carbs, and fats is the number one cause for mass confusion when it comes to diet, even at the healthcare professional or researcher level. So, people are constantly striving for more protein, and then they're confused about, do I need to be on a low-fat diet or a high-fat diet or a high-carb diet or avoid carbs? And nobody really knows what any of those things mean, really. And they really were convenient terms of biochemistry 150 years ago that have stayed and stuck and become definitive of diets, but it really doesn't mean anything. And I'll give you an example. So a white potato, has a better amino acid score than 90% lean beef. And we actually have the nutrition labels in the book.
Wow.
So you think of a potato, oh, that's just a carb, but it's not just a carb. All food have some combination of protein, carbohydrate, and fat, all whole foods. And so it doesn't really matter. You can do really well on any of those different diets. You could lose weight on pretty much any diet. There's most diets you could lose weight. But what are we looking at is what we want to talk about is, what's going to make us not only lose weight, but get healthier and stay healthy in the long run. So it has nothing to do with protein, carbs, and fat. And we want to change the conversation and the dialogue back to food. Like, what are you actually eating?
And so this is a really great point. When you go for these diets, because the problem with our diets generally, that is to say what we eat, is that we are oftentimes responding to what are fad diets or, popular diets might be a better way to put it. Because I'm not suggesting that everything is a fad, but, the keto diet, for example, is really hot right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what it is, but I just know I see it all the time, And these are all things that are designed to restrict calories. And so really, usually weight loss is the goal, right?
Right. And you can lose weight. You can lose weight on all sorts of things. You can lose weight on heroin. You could lose weight on the keto diet. On this carnivore diet is another new trend fad. But that doesn't mean it's healthy, and you can lose weight eating a plant-based diet, and we call it a Healthspan diet, and we want people to eat on the right of the triangle. We say keep eating right, because the right side of the food triangle is getting your food from plant sources.
Yeah, you have the food triangle here, and it's just that.
Yes, yes. It basically, it explains why you get those benefits on the keto diet, why you get them on the Mediterranean diet, why you can get them on a plant-based diet. It explains all of it because there is a very clear reason. There's a scientific explanation for all of it. But what we see in the health span and longevity research is that the only way we have ever extended health span and longevity in every model organism tested, from yeast to primates, is through dietary restriction without malnutrition.
Your book goes into different things. Circadian rhythm is one of them, the rising and setting of the sun and how it affects our body. What is the relationship between that, the circadian rhythm, and food and diet? How should we change things as the sun sets earlier, or?
Well, yes, there's definitely things that happen at a seasonal level, and we're so far removed from it. Ray wrote this amazing paper called The Metabolic Winter Hypothesis, where he goes into detail on this. And if you want to geek out, it's the best geeking out paper. And it talks about all this. But, our bodies are well aware of what's going on with weather, but we live in this constant environment where we're protected from the world. We are always at the same temperature. We go from our air-conditioned cars to our air-conditioned home and then to the air-conditioned airport, and we fly in an air-conditioned plane. We're at mono temperature all the time, all year long, no matter what, which is great for comfort, right? But we're also at a state where we eat the same amount of food all day long. We never store up for winter because, like the paper concludes, winter never comes. So all of these things come into play, and we do see things like seasonal affective disorder, or things that we are probably these chronic diseases that we are plagued with, the cardiovascular disease, diabetes, certain cancers that are impacted by us not dealing with our natural seasonal rhythms. So, we have higher levels of cortisol in the morning, right? So that's why it seems to be better to put more of your calories earlier in the day. And then once you're getting ready to go to sleep, our melatonin kicks up and stuff like that, where we need to not be eating. We need to be cooling down and getting, ready for sleep. And so all these things that are happening without us being aware of, but there are ways for us to induce, to go back and to tune with that natural rhythm.
Yeah, I mentioned some of these things because they are covered in the book. And, you do a great job. I should just say that I'm kind of discussing the science because that's the first part of the book. But it's not like a science book. I mean, but it does cover some of these details. And then it gets into the food, which looks delicious. But I mention these things because I think that, you can take it on as much as you want to. You can get into it as much as you want to. You can change your diet completely. You can modify your diet. You can begin to see some changes, whatever they may be. I'd always heard that eating a big meal in the morning is a good thing. I mean, again, this is sort of handed down decade to decade. True or false?
Marketing, good marketing. That's how they sold,
like
breakfast cereals.
Cereal companies.
Yeah. Because, and that's another rule that we broke in this cookbook, besides infusing it with all the science. We don't have breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, desserts, because that doesn't mean anything. You could eat anything, anytime. But again, with the dietary restriction, without malnutrition, we want you to eat less frequently. We want you to eat less. And eating these gorgeous soup, salad, sides, and sweets is a delicious, easy way to implement those lessons that we've learned in the lab. So no, you don't need to eat first thing in the morning. And I think it's a relief for people to know they don't need to eat all day long. And being in that fed state from wake until sleep is actually not helpful.
I don't know if it's a relief to people to know that they're not being fed all day long. I think people like to be fed all day long. But I take your point, which actually brings up another question. I'd heard, this is a while ago, a few years ago maybe, I don't know, but there was this notion that if you're eating frequent small meals, right, your metabolism stays high. And so that became the justification and rationale for kind of constantly stuffing your face. I was like, well, just keeping my metabolism high. What's the truth on both? That is to say, small, frequent meals, or if you're eating all the time, does that just keep your metabolism, roaring along?
Okay, metabolism scales with weight. The more you weigh, the faster your metabolism is. Period. So it doesn't matter when you eat. Yeah, you can get that thermic-induced thermogenesis that comes from diet. So like it's called DIT, dietary induced thermogenesis. So you get this temporary boost in your metabolism. But why is that? Because your body needs to burn through or figure out what to do with the food that comes in. Another really great geeky paper that Ray wrote that's absolutely mind-blowingly brilliant, and every time I read it, I learn something more, is called Oxidative Priority. And it talks about all of that stuff. So the point is that your metabolism is fine. I have not seen, he's measured metabolisms. People are always saying, doctors diagnose a bad metabolism without measuring a metabolism. And so I'll give myself as an example. I was always at the same weight my entire life. I was a personal trainer. I worked out 2-3 hours a day. I love to work out. I eat really healthy. But I was exactly the same weight except for during my 2 pregnancies throughout my whole life. And I still wanted to get down those last 10 pounds so badly because I'm in the public eye as a trainer. And then as a dietitian, everyone looks me up and down and decides whether to listen to me or not. So I wanted to lose 10 more pounds. And when I started implementing this work from Ray, he put me on his plan. And so I did it. And in 18 days, I lost the 12 pounds easily. And then I got into his metabolic indirect calorimeter right after I was in weight loss mode. So my metabolism should be crashed by then. I had been, eating really restricted eating for those, almost 3 weeks. And he put the hood on me and we measured my metabolism. And guess what? My metabolism was exactly as it was predicted by the Harris-Benedict equation, which is what we use to predict metabolisms, or like your resting metabolism. And I was burning 77% body fat after being on this diet for 18 days.
So that was just a diet that you had decided upon. That wasn't a diet what was the diet that you were on for 18 days?
Yeah, I was eating a plant-based diet, but I was eating less.
It was restrictive.
Yeah, it was restricted. Yeah. And so what? So the thing that I think our clients get really excited to know is you're not going to break your metabolism. You're not broken. If the scale's not moving, it's because of the food. It's always because of the food.
When I crave a food, there was that whole thing. When you're craving a food, that's your body saying you need that food that you're craving.
No, because look at cigarettes and drugs.
That seems so obviously BS. Because
right.
I'm always craving pizza or something.
Of course, because it tastes so damn good. It's like hyper-palatable food. When you have a food that's really high in fats and salt and sugar and oil and flours, they taste amazing. They give you this crazy dopamine hit, and you can't get enough. You just can't get enough. And that's biology. That's not because you're broken or because you have a pizza deficiency. So think about it. We are biologically able, we have adapted to store body fat. Like, that's what body fat is. It's stored energy. And of course, in times of no energy, when you're not eating a lot, of course you're going to go through your storage unit, your stored energy. That's the whole point of it. And in fact, the people that didn't eat a lot weren't going to jump into the gene pool with the same zest as someone that was able to store more fat for the winter. The problem is that winter never comes. But I have a question for you. What do you think is the longest someone could go without food? Like, what is the longest medically supervised water-only fast? How long do you think someone could go without food?
I'm going to guess 10 days.
10 days and no food. The longest what's published of the medically supervised water-only fast was 382 days.
Wow.
And this is not, there were others
so
that were
close.
Yeah. Almost. Right. I mean, we literally, all of us he had 275 pounds to lose, but he kept it off after 5 years. He didn't break his metabolism.
Wow.
And people go weeks and days without food, and it's fine because then our body goes, oh, I guess I'll tap into my stored energy. And that's the whole point of body fat.
So some of us are just storing a lot of energy, more than we need, kind of, is what happens when we're overweight.
It's that we just don't stop eating. We just keep eating because it's delicious and food is fun. And every single thing we do socially is circled around food. Everything. We go to a game. We go on an airplane. We go, we have a party. We have a holiday. We have birthday. Food. And it's delicious and you want to eat. And it's like social. We call it the ultimate social lubricant, is just consuming food.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, the ultimate social lubricant is consuming alcohol. Believe me, I can speak to that firsthand. But it's funny. One of the things that people ask me, when I went plant-based, people say, well, do you miss anything? What do you miss the most? I was like, I miss my friends.
I know.
Because they go, oh, don't invite Mark because it's a sushi place and you want everything to eat. The truth is you can always find something to eat if you're plant-based. I mean, there's, you can find them at a sushi place. You can find it at a steak place. It doesn't matter. I mean, sometimes there's more stuff on the menu that's an option for you than in other places. But it's perfectly, you can participate in society, I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Without any issue.
No, right. And it's a problem that it's like I try everything to avoid the conversation. I don't need you to worry about me eating, like everywhere, holidays, dinners out, lunches out with girlfriends, whatever. I'm always like, don't worry about me. I'm fine. And I don't even bring it up. But they always seem to bring it up. And it always seems to be uncomfortable because they're worried or they don't want to eat that in front of me or all this stuff. And I'm like, I really don't care. Do whatever you want.
Right. I just said this last night. Like, hey, man, I don't want you to dude, I'm not judging you. I don't give a damn. It's about me. This is why I eat this way. I'm judging myself, not judging you.
Right.
But this book isn't hammering people over the heads with plant-based. It's getting to those conclusions about what you should put in your body based on science. And then you offer these gorgeous recipes. I mean, this book is really pretty, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Let me ask you about sugar and flour, since they're in, I guess, a lot of stuff. Give me flour first. What is flour?
Flour is basically a refined starch. Like you take the wheat grain and you just take out all the fiber and you process it. You can go to whole wheat and then you can go to white. You could go like as much as you want. You can enrich it back with other things. But it's basically just ground up, a refined version of a grain.
Okay.
Mostly grain. You could also do other things.
And it's not good or bad?
Well, we don't even say good or bad. It's processed. So you've gotten rid of the most important part, the fiber, most of the fiber. But it's like we always say the most important question when it comes to good or bad or should I, shouldn't I, is compared to what? So if you're going to have some pasta or you're going to have a burger, you're better off with the pasta.
I see.
But if you're going to have pasta or you're going to have, let's say, the couscous, the intact grain, that has more fiber, that may be a little bit better. So we always want to focus on compared to what.
Sugar is now sort of recognized as the enemy, right?
Right.
What is the reality on that?
Yeah, sugar also is highly refined. There's no nutritional need for sugar, and people just are overdoing it, just way too much. In fact, the World Health Organization wants people to limit it to no more than 5% of intake, caloric intake, and then a lot of recommendations are 10% because they think that no one's going to go to 5%. But we're getting like 25% of calories from sugar, and that's really harmful. In fact, it may be just as harmful as all this excessive saturated fat that we're getting from animal products.
Can you walk through the airport and healthfully eat in any way? I think it's beginning to change But I think that's one of the toughest things. If you're traveling, and a lot of people listening to this podcast are traveling, I just feel as though your options are, there's Cinnabon, there's Pizza Hut, there's Burger King. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't seem as though now you're seeing a little bit more in the way of salads and stuff like that. But even those salads are chicken salad and egg salad. I don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is getting better. And there is always, you could always find rice somewhere. You can always, but it's not optimal. But here's the thing that I want to leave people with, that because I travel all the time as well, is that nutrition is not an emergency. If you have to travel all day to get somewhere and you don't eat and you have to wait until you get there to find a market or to find a restaurant where it's something that's appropriate, you're going to be just fine. You really will. I mean, it's a hard pill to swallow because we think we need to eat all the time. Otherwise, we're going to end up with a deficiency. Or
no,
we're
it's true. It's almost like a time killer. I'll get to the airport early and I'll get something to eat.
Yeah, and that's fine. Or you could bring food with you. I travel. I almost always bring something with me, but I often don't even eat that food until the next day because I'm fine going 5, 6, 7 hours without food. We don't need to eat all the time. In fact, we're better off with less frequent feeding. So it's actually an excuse to go, I'm going to see if I could just get to my destination and not eat anything in the way.
What are the daily threes in your book?
Oh, the 6 daily threes. Okay, so with all those foods I want you to eat, the vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, mushrooms, nuts, seeds, herbs, and spices, how do you prioritize and how do you look at your overall day? So from a nutritional standpoint, here's how I divided it up. Or we divided it up. But the 6 daily threes are 6 things that we recommend you have like 3 servings of a day. One of them would be legumes. So beans, or I always say hummus should be a food group, lentils, peas, soy foods. Those foods are really important for certain nutritional profiles. There's certain things about them that are really necessary in the diet. A lot of fiber, a lot of these different kinds of these good amino acids, a lot of these wonderful phytonutrients. So every day we want you to have about 1 to 1.5 cups ends up being 3 servings of legumes. The other one would be leafy greens and cruciferous vegetables because, oh my goodness, there's a whole plethora of phytonutrition and amazing health promoting qualities that those foods have uniquely. And so 3 servings a day would be 1 serving is either 1 cup raw or half a cup cooked. But that's the minimum. I want you to eat as many of those foods as you can. The other one would be fruits. Fruits have other unique nutritional properties and very low calorie density too. So 3 servings of fruit a day, that's 1 medium piece or half a cup. And then we've got nuts and seeds. So about 1 to 2 ounces of nuts and seeds a day. Now, there is a host of literature supporting the cardiometabolic benefits of eating 1 to 2 ounces of nuts and seeds a day. And this includes all different nuts and seeds. There's different benefits to different ones, but that's really like a handful. So I like to make it as a nut, like a nut-based or seed-based dressing or sauce. And then you eat it over your vegetables and, make an amazing dish out of it. And the last one is not food, but instead it is movement. It says exercise, but activity, because the opposite of sedentary isn't exercise. The opposite of sedentary is active. So we want you to be active throughout the day as well. So those are 6 things that you should prioritize in your day. And then there's room for other things to play around with.
And you even have comfort food mentioned in your book. I mean, it's not as though everything is, this isn't it's not a regimen that doesn't allow for you to enjoy food at all. In fact, it opens doors, I think, to a bunch of other taste experiences that maybe you haven't even thought of.
100%. I mean, we are such foodies. We love to cook. In fact, Ray went to culinary school, so it was kind of fun to put our heads together. Everyone always thinks the dietitian knows how to cook, and I'm always asked to write recipes and do cooking demos, but I wasn't taught how to cook. But he was. And so, we have a whole section, whole chapter on food flavors and fallacies and how to get the optimal flavor. And oh my gosh, it's just about thinking of your plate a little differently. Like once you take that hunk of meat that was the center of the plate that we were all raised to know how to make and enjoy, we are just making you kind of think outside a little bit of the plate, and it kind of inspires you to get creative and try all these different unique flavors and, visit different cultural palates. There's so many amazing foods. I'm going to Thailand very soon again. There's a culinary school that we teach at, and amazing foods from the Thai palate. And then there's Indian foods and Latin foods, and there's so many delicious cuisines out there, and it kind of forces you to go outside of what the typical standard American fare that we're used to.
It really is true that some of this ethnic cooking is so delicious, and I really didn't experience any of it until I was out of college. And then even then, you just tend to go to a rib joint or a burger place or a steakhouse. And it wasn't really, I think, until, 10 years even after that I started to get into Thai food and, Asian cuisine and Indian cuisine. I always sort of shied away from it. And now I love it. I mean, the spices associated with Indian food are just, magnificent.
Magnificent.
Yeah.
Ethiopian food. I discovered so many new cuisines when I went plant-based that I never knew about and absolutely have incorporated it. In fact, our book has recipes from a lot of different countries.
You know, it's funny. I'll tell you this one story just because people who listen to the show know that I'm plant-based, but I'm not on a jihad. I'd love for you guys all to come over. I think it's a great way to be. I did it for ethical reasons, but you could do it for these health reasons, which are associated with Julieanna's book. But I, play a lot of poker. And when I'm playing poker, most of the guys are just meat and potatoes poker players, you know what I mean? Just generally the stuff that's ordered tends to fall into that kind of more basic category. But I would always, order something that I go, well, can you make it like this? And can you bring this? And can you bring this salad that has this and this and this? And people repeatedly, I would notice, would say, what is that he has? What is it? Because it was a little more colorful or something, popped a little bit more. And they say, well, he put together his own, and they say, well, can you put together another one? Can you put together another one? And people realize that, sometimes ordering off the menu, if you will, a little bit, or just, again, this is just a couple of degrees off of where you normally would be. You can just open up a great taste experience.
I love to do that when I go to events, or I like to host people at my house, and I love to bring dishes that are, what I would eat. And notably, that's the dish that's always gone first because people go, oh, this is really good. And if you don't say anything about it's plant-based, they don't even notice.
That's exactly right. That's the other thing that happened. Then I'll let you go. But I had a big gathering at my home. This is a few years ago. And I served tacos and beer and, there were margaritas and that kind of thing. But the tacos were made by a culinary crew that does only plant-based stuff. And so they used jackfruit instead of pulled pork or some of the other stuff. And people are getting, 8, 9 tacos. And the one guy said, wow, these are the best, man. You have the best food at your place. And I said, that's at the end I told him.
Yeah.
I said, that's jackfruit. That's not actually pork.
What?
I said, what, man?
Hold the phone.
Yeah, those are vegan, the V word. Like, oh, my God, dude, I kind of say are great. So you're right. If you tell them ahead of time, sometimes they see sort of a radioactivity to it. But if you don't, it's such an easy transition to make.
Yeah, because there's this inherent bias of we sticks and grass, and that's what we live on. But we love to eat. Like, we love delicious food, and we travel the world eating delicious food. And that's what we were excited to share in this book because we want this to be good. You shouldn't suffer. No one's going to stick to it if you're miserable. What's the point?
Yeah.
And you don't have to be.
And for those who, because I got an email saying, hey, Mark, what good is living longer, and how can you say you're living better if you're not having one of the things that I enjoy the most, which is a piece of meat? All right, I get it. If you're that dug in, then maybe you can only adapt so many things probably from this. But I think there are ways to modify even around that, your existing bias with meat, and you can begin to get into some sort of plant-based offerings.
Absolutely. There is probably a certain amount of meat that we can tolerate. There really probably is. Because if you look at most of the blue zones around the world, the longest lived populations, the ones with the most centenarians, they weren't exclusively vegan. One of them was mostly plant-based, the only one in the United States in Loma Linda. But all of them were plant-centric. So that is the center of the plate. Most of what they eat is plants. And that's how it always was until modern refrigeration and agriculture. It was never like this where you could have a huge hunk of meat in the middle of your plate 3 times a day, which is why people are dealing with all of this chronic disease. So we may be able to tolerate a little bit. So just minimizing it and trying different recipes, eating just sides. That's all you need to do.
Yeah. I think of that also in the way of dessert. I used to be a real big dessert hound. I mean, I could drive across town for a cupcake. That was really would. And that was the other great thing about going plant-based. So I thought, well, they make that with butter. I don't need butter. I don't need anything from an animal, so I'm not going to go across town to eat that cupcake anymore. Now they made it. So I started to actually just like a slim down very little. But I mean, I was really pretty slim. But what I've noticed now is there's more and more plant-based chocolate chip cookies, cupcakes, birthday cakes. And it makes it a lot harder to lay off of those big desserts,
I'll tell you, Mark, I've been doing this for 15 years, teaching plant-based nutrition. And for the first time in 15 years, I have clients coming to me literally that are vegan, that are having the same health concerns as the meat eaters. And that is a problem. So we don't want you to go off and eat all that processed, animal-free junk food. That should be your rare and appropriate. We call it rare and appropriate, meaning, people and places, not time between events. So a special occasion when you can enjoy something for a specific reason, not because, you're going to cheat once a week or all of that stuff. But those are great foods, and I'm glad that we have that available right now. But we need to keep those as rare and appropriate and stick to the staples, the vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, mushrooms, nuts, seeds, herbs, and spices, in tasty, infinite combinations that are going to be your health foods for life.
And again, up with a martini and to sleep with a Cabernet, or no, not
not on a regular basis. Rare and appropriate. Rare and appropriate.
America's favorite dietitian, Julieanna Hever. Her new book with Ray Cronise is The Healthspan Solution. How and what to eat to add life to your years. 100 easy whole food recipes. It's a beautiful book. It's an informative book. I'll have a link to how to get it on our website, edge-show.com. And there's probably a link also wherever you're watching this on the iTunes platform, et cetera, that we'll put a hot link in there as well. Julieanna, thank you for coming, and congratulations on the book.
Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate it.
Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to reach us, edgewithmarkthompson@gmail.com. Until next time, bye-bye.
This is Donald J. Trump, dictator of the United States. He's got a hyphen in the website name. Very bad. I bought the hyphen. I own it.
edge-show.com.